Let's talk about something nobody wants to say out loud. At midlife, women become invisible. You've all felt it. The waiter who looks past you to take someone else's order. The meeting where nobody responds to your idea until a man repeats it a couple minutes later. The mirror that reflects a woman the world has decided is no longer relevant. And here's what we've been taught. Aging as a woman is supposed to be some kind of tragedy. The loss of youth, the loss of attention, the loss of power, the loss of worth. But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if being unseen isn't the end of your power, but the beginning of your freedom? Today, we're flipping perspective on invisibility. Because the truth is, you've spent decades on display. Your body, your choices, your worth, it's always up for evaluation. It's always being measured. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop giving a foog what others think. We're talking about downshifting, a transition towards a more balanced lifestyle where we prioritize simplicity, meaning, personal fulfillment, and well-being over conforming to societal expectations. Welcome to the Bold Life School, the show that empowers you to elevate your life and to step into your full potential. I'm your host, Jamesyn, and this is where ambition meets authenticity, where you'll find the tools and inspiration to grow, evolve, and thrive. Each week, we dive into powerful topics that challenge the status quo, whether it's to break through limiting beliefs, navigate life's transitions, or embrace the bold moves that push you beyond your comfort zone. Now let's get into today's episode. So let's start with the part nobody wants to hear. That women at midlife feel unseen in professional spaces and social spaces, sometimes even in our own families. The world kind of stops seeing us, and we kind of feel it. We feel it when we walk into a room. We're no longer the center of attention. When our voices get talked over, we get looked right through. When our expertise gets questioned by someone half our age with half our experience. I don't really remember the first time I felt it. It was more like my youth was slipping away, not being noticed, ignored, not heard, just fading quietly into the background of other people's busy lives. It's probably not even intentional, but I've sat there a million times thinking, hello, am I invisible? And the answer is yes, apparently I am. And I am here for it. I'll tell you why later, but first, what does society think about us getting older? We feel it in the cultural narrative that says midlife's supposed to be the beginning of the end. We're becoming obsolete. I remember when I was growing up and my mom turned 40, and there were a whole bunch of party decorations in our living room that were funeral focused. Lordy, lordy, look who's 40, 1 foot in the grave, all of that stuff. It's even worse these days because we have all of the things to fix aging. We have Botox. You need new cheekbones. We have facelifts to make you look 30 years younger. Mommy makeovers. All of the work to dial back the years. And that youth equals relevance. And it stings a little bit when you don't have it. We were all taught that being seen means being valued. And that attention is currency. If people aren't looking at us, we must not matter then, right? It also starts to bring up the fragile nature of life and the fact that our own mortality is staring us in the face. There's physical evidence of it. The wrinkles, the aches and the pains in the morning. The worst injuries happen when you're doing no activity at all. I never thought I would strain my shoulder picking up groceries or getting off the couch wrong would give me back pain. We get chest pressure and we start to wonder, is this heart disease? Am I going to have a heart attack? Menopause brings with it brain fog and poor memory. And we start to wonder, is this early dementia? Am I losing my memory? Our changing bodies and minds are not acknowledged enough in society. The research on women's bodies and minds is minimal in comparison to men. And if we're not careful, we start to believe that societal message that we are not important and that we are losing value as we age. So, a lot of women out there are mourning. They're grieving what's been lost. They're angry. They're lost and confused. They're not sure where to go. There's no more of the male gaze, the validation, the sense that we still have something to offer. The easy breezy freedom not to have to think about death and decay of our bodies and minds was great. It's easy to focus on what we lack now, what we used to have, what's slipping away. And I'm not here to tell you that that pain isn't real. It is. You're not imagining it. The world does look past you now in ways that it didn't necessarily before. But here's the thing. That whole equation was rigged from the start. Being seen was never actually about your value. It was about their consumption of and desire for you. We've been used and abused as women for the gain of others for decades, hundreds of years, dare say thousands of years. So what if instead of mourning what we somehow have lost, we start claiming what we have gained? Here's your first question to sit with. When you think about being unseen, what are you actually grieving? Is it the loss of value or the loss of validation from others? Which do you care about? Your value as a worthy, whole person, a whole individual, or validation by others for what they think is important for you? Just take a moment with that because the answer matters. This gives you some insight on whether you have the opportunity to reclaim your value, your independence, your next chapter, and just kind of get going, get off and running, or if you have an opportunity to dig into why it's so important for you to receive that validation from others. Thinking about why do you care so much? By this stage of the game, it's likely that you have only grown emotionally and intelligently as a human, right? Like we've all made some progress, hopefully. So at this point, your value has gone up. Maybe your value in the marketplace has gone down, the meat marketplace. That is more about the loss of validation as a commodity to others. Validation comes from the outside, praise, looks, compliments, feedback from others. But we all have value, and we all get old. Don't forget that. Here's what I know. Invisibility at midlife isn't a tragedy. It is a gift, and I'm going to tell you why. How much of your life have you spent on display? Really think about it. From the time you were a little girl, you've been watched, evaluated, judged. Is she pretty enough? Is she nice? Is she small enough? Is she thin enough? Is she quiet enough? Is she accommodating to others enough? You learned early that your value was tied to how others perceived you. So you performed at school, at home, in dating, at work, in marriages, everywhere. We wear this mask of conformity and we become cushions for others' sense of comfort. We all have managed our appearance, our tone, our opinions, the amount of space we take up, our availability for the care and support of others. We've made ourselves palatable, digestible, just easy to get along with. We've spent decades curating ourselves for that external approval. It was exhausting. I know because I did it too. For years, I showed up as the version of myself that I thought people needed, or that I thought people wanted me to be or expected me to be. Putting aside relationships and marriage, just thinking about my corporate career. I learned to soften my edges, keep my strong opinions to myself, let too many things go, make more ideas digestible to others, shrink my presence so I wouldn't intimidate anyone or stand out too much with a new idea. Even as a very independent woman, I've spent many years performing constantly. But at a certain age, something started to shift. I hit my mid-40s and I realized they're not watching anymore. The spotlight's moved on. And my first reaction was that same panic. Wait, I've worked so hard to be seen. I used to, or I'm not used to. But then I started to feel relief because I realized I don't have to perform anymore. I don't have to put up with a bunch of crap I never wanted to begin with. I don't have to please others and meet their expectations. I don't need to climb to ascend some imaginary ladder of success because I just want to do me and I just want to be me. And that looks a lot different than it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. In midlife, many women experience a shift where they start to naturally break away from the standards of the past, but they don't always understand the power and freedom that comes with it. What if being unseen means you finally get to stop doing all of that performance? What if invisibility is your exit? What if you finally get to be left alone? Oh my gosh, this is a huge one for me. I love my alone time. Think about it. You've been on stage your whole life, everybody with their opinions, and now that spotlight's moved on. Yes, at first, that feels like rejection. But what if it's release? What if losing male gaze isn't a loss, but a liberation? I mean, I am the world's biggest advocate for being single, solo, and proud. What if you no longer have to give a fuck what others think? You can wear the pajamas, skip the makeup, say the thing you've been holding back, take up space without apologizing. Go out and get 4 puppies like I did. You can stop shrinking, stop performing, stop managing everyone else's comfort because here's the truth. When you're unseen, you're finally free to just be. Not the version of you that's been edited for public consumption for decades. The real you. Raw, unfiltered, unapologetic. And that is power. What I want to emphasize is the opportunity that you have to unearth what it is that you really want and to just rediscover who you really are as that independent, unique, happy, carefree woman. What would you do differently if you knew no one was watching? What would you say? What would you wear? What would you create? Who would you become? Just sit with that question because that's your truth trying to emerge. This is exactly the type of thought work that I do with my clients at The Bold Life. When women come to me feeling discontent, overwhelm, exhaustion, or just tired of living the status quo the way that they were, and when they're looking for a change. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it's not just about visibility. These are real losses. I miss who I was when I was young, and you are right. They are right. But what if you changed your worldview? What if the things that feel like losses are actually invitations? Let me give you some examples. Losing your luggage. At first glance, that sounds like a problem, right? You've lost something, you're without your stuff, it sucks. But what if losing your luggage means that you're traveling lighter? What if shedding old identities, old roles, old expectations is actually freedom? What if you don't need to carry all that baggage anymore? Recently, I went on a quick trip to Scotland with a friend, and the airline actually lost her luggage. It's unfortunate in any case, but in this case, she's traveled half a day and overnight. So, tired, needs a shower, wants to brush teeth, all of that. On top of that, it was cold there. No coat, everything just gone. Well, we did not let that stop us. We decided to go ahead and hit that fancy restaurant anyway, because who cares what we look like? So we're sitting at the table, we're surrounded by people, couples, families, all dressed up for the holidays because it was that kind of place. And there we were looking very less than our bests, but we were laughing to ourselves because no one else cared. We didn't care because we know who we are. We knew that whatever we look like, we belong in an environment like that. We're confident. We are boss ladies without having to look all dolled up. So we just enjoyed ourselves. We enjoyed our surroundings. The food was very good. The time spent together was just as meaningful. And afterwards, she bought a few necessities, underwear, definitely, a coat, and a head to toe cable knit pajama set. She was looking like a marshmallow. And we laughed about it again. And I thought to myself, why didn't I just pack some soft pajamas to wear under my coat in the first place? That outfit is the perfect travel outfit to wear when you are walking around town, looking at the sights, sitting on a luxury tour bus, and you just want to feel comfortable. And that's when I realized we carry so much unnecessary weight. We're trying too hard to look apart, right? To fit an image, to meet expectations. But what if we just didn't? What is the worst that could happen? What if we wore pajamas all day, all the time, beyond that trip? Well, society says that's lazy, that's letting yourself go. But what if wearing pajamas is about comfort over performance? What if prioritizing your needs over appearances is actually respecting yourself? What if you've earned the right to be comfortable in your own home? What if you just wore beautiful or not beautiful, comfortable two-piece loungewear everywhere, to the airport, to run errands, to take calls on camera? I mean, if the top looks good, right? This is actually something that I've been pondering lately. I'm thinking about investing in some high quality loungewear. I'm telling you that I was very inspired by this lost luggage situation in Scotland. To be clear, I'm not saying that we should give up or reject every standard that society has for looking or feeling good. I know that when you're in the office or when you're on camera with clients, you do need to conform to a certain level of professionalism. So if feeling good means dressing to the nines, if confidence to you feels like wearing a full face of makeup, you be you. But what I'm saying is that you have the opportunity to choose what feels right for you and what feels good to you. Many times, our choices about these things are derived from a slew of factors, and they all just build up to exhaustion. One of these factors in midlife is lack of sleep. We have a lot to get done. We have worries, we have noise, and menopause brings insomnia for a lot of women. We're told it's a symptom. Deal with it, get over it. It's a problem to fix. Take some pills, whatever the cause of it. For about 6 months, I became a complete insomniac. Prior to that, never had an issue with sleep. I don't think in my entire life. But recently, when this had happened, I'd lie in bed for 5 to 6 hours before getting to sleep. It was a problem, I thought, because we're told it's a problem and we should be on some regular sleep schedule, right? It's the best thing for us, right? It's normal, right? Well, that wasn't helping me. So after this went on, I started to change my thinking. What if being up all night isn't a flaw? It's an opportunity. What if those 3 a.m. hours are when my truest self emerges? What if I decide to own that I'm a night owl now? And something happened with that change of perspective. Without the noise of the day, without the demands and distractions around me, I could finally hear myself think. My creativity was coming out. So that time became sacred. Creative night owl energy, a chance to think, to write, to read, to learn, all my favorite things, to dream, to shift my being. So, what if insomnia is your body making space for something new in you? What if you no longer had to think about being enough to others, and those quiet hours became the time that you finally thought about what's enough for you? In midlife, there is a lot to lose. You know, what loss in your life might actually be an invitation? What if you stopped fighting it and started exploring it? Here's what I'm saying. The narrative of loss, it only works if we accept the worldview that gave us the value of it in the first place. But who's to say that you can't just reject that worldview entirely? What if we stop measuring ourselves by the things that we've supposedly lost and we start claiming what we've found? And here's another thing about being unseen. You can contribute more powerfully under the radar. Think about it. When you're invisible, you have freedom to move without scrutiny. You can take risks, experiment, fail, pivot, try something bold. And nobody's watching closely enough to judge you for it. You can lead quietly, influence deeply, create boldly without needing the spotlight, without needing applause, without needing permission. The power of the unseen is this: you're no longer performing for approval. You're building for impact. You're not asking, will they like this? You're asking, does this matter? You're not wondering, am I enough? You're deciding, what do I want to create? And that shift is everything. When I started building my business, I did it quietly. No big announcement, no fanfare, no watch me launch this whole thing. I just started writing, coaching, creating. And because no one was watching, I could experiment. I thought about ways that I could do the parts of the business that I love and offload the parts I don't. Thought about how I could avoid marketing and social media as much as possible. I thought about how I could do what I wanted on my own terms. I could try things that might not work. I could pivot without explaining myself. I could build something that felt true to me, not true to what I thought people expected. In fact, I didn't want to open myself up to the scrutiny of others because I wanted to do it my way for myself. And keeping it quiet and working quietly on this, to me, was the easiest way to get clear on what I wanted for myself instead of, going to others and getting their perspectives that were really not important. And that freedom, that's what being under the radar gave me. There's a different kind of freedom that comes with career success. As we get into leadership, we're often the face of team successes or failures, but it's also a time that we step back from some of the upfront project leadership in favor of a different kind of influence. As a people leader in corporate, it took me a while to embrace this change, stepping back from the front lines of projects and going from that independent contributor to a leader. And what that means is spending more time guiding, mentoring, and coaching other people to become confident and successfully execute projects that you used to execute. And it's not a demotion, but it's a reorientation in perspective, in how we relate to others, how we go from execution to more of an emphasis on people development, engaging in higher level goal setting and strategy on behalf of the team. I mean, people leaders are not there to take credit for the successes of others, but to build up a confident and competent team who shine on their own. And I noticed this positive shift in my own leadership abilities over time as I learned to embrace leading versus doing, empowering versus controlling, facilitating success versus demanding action, and then cheering on others versus trying to just do it all myself. Some of the most powerful work in the world happens under the radar. The mentors who change lives without fanfare, creators who build movements without seeking personal fame, leaders who influence without needing a title. What if being unseen means you finally do the work that matters to you without needing the validation? What if you could contribute more freely because no one's watching, no one's judging, no one cares? Invisibility isn't erasure, it's strategic freedom if you use it wisely. So, question: what would you build, create, or contribute if you didn't need anyone's approval? What really matters to you, regardless of getting accolades for it or applause? What kind of secret passion project would you start just because you wanted to? Write it all down, and that might be your compass for future you. Now, let's talk about the tension, because I know some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'm not ready to be invisible. I do want to be seen. I do care what others think. I don't want to shift my whole being. I like who I am. I want to stay young and live forever. Listen, I hear you. This reframe doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay. But I want you to ask yourself something. Is it really desire to be young, or is this just resistance to change? Sometimes we think we want something, but it's actually just that we're afraid to let go of the past. Could it be that the resistance to change is what's keeping you resentful or exhausted? Could it be your perspective that being young is good and aging is not that's holding you back? Are you holding on to the past because it feels safe and comfortable, even though it's keeping you stuck in the same place? Are you clinging to your old self-identity because you're afraid of who you might become? What might change? What you might lose? I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I first felt myself aging, I fought it hard. When I turned 50, my motto was that I wanted to look 40 or younger until 50, at least. So for a while, I doubled down on the performance. I was spending time and money to look younger, do all the things. I worked harder, spoke louder, tried to prove that everything I did still mattered. And after a while, I thought to myself, who cares? Like, who really cares? Because I was clinging to a version of myself that no longer fit. I was almost trying to hold on to an identity that required constant external validation to feel real and to keep it all up. One day I had to ask myself, am I bothered because I'm being overlooked, or am I angry because I don't know who I am without their attention? That question changed everything. Here's the hard truth, and I'm going to say it with love. Holding on to the past keeps us stuck. Holding on to your old selves keeps you stuck. And if you're angry or resentful about being unseen, but you're also unwilling to let go of the version of yourself that needed to be seen in order to feel valuable, then you're going to stay stuck forever until you change your perspective. Now, I'm not saying that you have to let go of everything that you once were. You don't have to burn your whole life down, but you do have to let go of what no longer serves you. And sometimes what no longer serves you is the belief that your worth is tied to other people's attention. The question isn't whether you want to be seen. The question is, who do you want to be going forward? Do you want to be the woman who needs external validation to feel worthy? I do not. Or do you want to be the woman who knows her worth, whether anyone's watching or not, whether anyone cares or not? Because one of those paths leads to freedom and the other leads to a lifetime of performance. What are you holding on to that's keeping you stuck? And what would it cost you to let it go? Versus what would it cost you to keep holding on? Be honest, the answer will show up in your next step. Now, here's where it gets really uncomfortable, because when I ask you, who do you want to be going forward? Some of you don't have an answer. Not because you're not smart enough, not because you're not capable, but because you've been performing for so damn long that you don't even actually know who you are underneath it all. You spent decades being who somebody else needed you to be. The good mother, the good daughter, the supportive wife, the reliable employee, the helpful friend. You've shaped yourself around everyone else's needs, expectations, and comfort. And somewhere along the way, maybe you lost track of you. I know this feeling. I've felt the expectation and the weight of the world's on my shoulders, especially as a single parent. I put up with work I didn't want to be doing at some points, behaviors I consider beneath me, people I didn't want to be around. I did these things for the greater good, to earn a paycheck, to co-parent effectively, to ensure my child had the things that he needed. He was my why. Those things were my why. So I made things easier, in some cases, to get the job done. And parenting and relationships sometimes mean making sacrifices. It's not always a bad thing to do what you need to do to support others. If we're lucky to have relationships, families, friends, and such, we all make those sacrifices to meet the needs of others at some points. And to a certain extent, it's healthy. It makes us good people. And sometimes sacrificing our needs and desires is a necessity, especially when things get hard, especially when you're struggling financially or otherwise. But the problem is when we get so used to being what others need and expect that we completely lose sight of our own self and our own needs and our own desires. Many women are struggling with this because they've become so detached from their individual needs, desires, and identities. They're used to performing for others all of the time, and they're drowning in anger, depression, resentment, exhaustion. They're emotionally spent and pissed off. So when I ask you, who do you want to become if you freeze? Maybe it's because you don't know. You know who you were, you know who you're supposed to be, but who you want to be? That may be a blank page. And if so, it's terrifying. Because if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you want, how are you supposed to build a life that feels like it's yours? Here's what I want you to hear. It's not failure. It's totally common behavior. It's not evidence that you're broken, you're not lost, you're not behind. It's just evidence that you've been performing. And the fact that you don't know who you are yet, that means you're finally asking the right questions. Because here's the truth. You can't become who you want to be until you stop being who you think you're supposed to be. And it's hard to let go of that. That process, it doesn't start with the answers. It doesn't just magically show up one day. It starts with questions, and it starts with permission. Permission not to know. Permission to just explore, to just dream, to try on different versions of yourself and see what fits. It's permission to be a work in progress, not having to do it all perfectly, not having to have it all figured all out. You just need to start asking the question, who do I want to be? Not who was I, not who should I be? Who do I want to be? And then start experimenting. You try things. You pay attention to what lights you up and what drains you. You notice what feels like performance and what feels like truth. What do you hate doing that you're doing all the time that you don't want to do? You give yourself space to just be curious, be messy, be uncertain, look silly, make mistakes, grow, learn, have fun. Yes, have fun for one time in your recent life. That's what I tried to do. In starting a business, I started small. I tried new things. I just paid attention to how I felt. And I tried to keep it all in line with my future goals. Did this energize me? Did it deplete me? Did this feel like me or like who I thought I should be? And slowly, I started to recognize myself, who I wanted to be in the future, who I want to become, not the performed version, but the real one. That's how you find yourself, not by having the answers, but by finally giving yourself permission to ask the questions. So if you're sitting here thinking, I don't know who I want to become, good. That means you're awake. It means you're done performing. And that means that you're ready to start discovering. This work to find that clarity, to get unstuck, and to give yourself permission to envision a new chapter is exactly the type of work that I'm doing with clients in my 12-session private accelerator. So stay tuned for upcoming launch details on that program. Dear bold ones, this isn't about choosing invisibility or visibility. It's about choosing yourself. Who do you want to be going forward? Not who you were, not who they want you to be. Who do you want to be? What do you want to create? What do you want to contribute? What do you want to become with or without an audience? How can you use this season, this freedom from constant scrutiny, to build or rebuild the life you actually want? Because here's what midlife invisibility really is. It's the cocoon before your new wings. It's the pause before the transformation. It's the moment when the world stops watching and you finally get to decide what happens next. You get to decide, seen or unseen, loud or quiet, bold or under the radar. But here's what you don't get to do. Stay stuck in resentment over what you've lost. Because the truth is you haven't lost anything. You've been freed. You have freedom. can be freed from the exhausting labor of being on display, freed from the need to shrink yourself to fit expectations, freed from the belief that your value is tied to the male gaze. And now the question is, what are you going to do with that freedom? Are you going to spend it mourning what's gone? Are you going to stew in resentment, or are you going to spend it building what's next? I've chosen to build, to enjoy, to throw it all out the window, to rebuild. And it's never easy. It's not instant, but it is yours. I see women at midlife who are done performing. They're done shrinking. They're done apologizing. They're ready for change. I see women who are ready to take up space, to speak their truth, to build something that matters. I see women who are stepping off the stage and stepping into a different kind of power. And that's not invisible. That's freedom. It's the permission slip you've been waiting for. Permission to stop performing, permission to stop shrinking, permission to stop caring what they think. You've spent decades on display. Now it's your time to live for yourself. So here's the invitation. Step off the stage. Claim your freedom. Build your next chapter however you want it. Just build it and make it yours. Keep going. If you enjoyed today's episode, head over to theboldlife.coach for more resources, join our community, and start living your boldest life today.